Welcome to EPG Pathshala. My name is Dr. Poonam Gulalia. I am faculty with the Tata Institute of Social Sciences. The paper which is being discussed is titled Fieldwork and Field Supervision. The module which I will be discussing with you now is titled Learning Theories. The content of this module is as under. One would begin with an introduction, move on to what are learning theories, what is social learning theory, what are the theories for intervention, what are crisis intervention approach to learning, what is a task-centered approach to learning, what are the systems theory, further, what is psychosocial theory of development and what is psychodynamic theory. Concluding with transpersonal theory, one would undertake an overview of learning theories before summarizing this module. To begin with, one would need to say that social workers in every field face obstacles and challenges that come with trying to understand human behavior. Gaining an insight into human behavior is a complex and a layered process, and social workers employ a variety of theories to achieve positive results for their clients and client populations. One such theory is called social learning theory. Albert Bandura, the proponent of social learning theory, explained way back in 1877 that human behavior is learned through observation and imitation. Also, if new behavior is to be learned, it is to be learned when it is reinforced. Bandura demonstrated the effects of observation and imitation with his famous Bobo doll experiment, where children demonstrated increased aggression after watching the behavior of adults. This theory explains that the learning process involves observation and experiencing new behaviors which are reinforced through other people. As a result, new behaviors are either continued or stopped depending on how these behaviors are reinforced internally and externally within a social experiment. As a social worker, if one understands social learning theory, it can enable one to utilize practice models to handle behavioral conflicts no matter whatever be the fieldwork setting. Theories for knowledge building therefore include learning theories, social learning theories, and cognitive theories. Social learning theories. It is a known reality that social workers face issues and conflicts which are a result of problematic social factors or behavioral factors. For example, social values in a school setting encounter students who are victims of bullying, substance abuse, school attendance, poor academic performance, or psychological issues which affect the socialization of students. All or some of these issues could be influenced by situations which can be understood by social learning theory. It is through the use of therapy techniques such as positive modeling, stress management, and systematic desensitization that student social workers can understand how to approach such problem situations. New behaviors can be shaped by changing the positive or negative reinforcement which is associated with the stimuli at the root of the problem. Beginning with Jean Piaget, a Swiss psychologist who described the ability of a child to perceive others' point of view due to egocentrism. This was later developed as the theory of mind by Dan Premack and Woodruff and Hans Wiener in 1983, who extended it to the study of child development. The ability to grasp the theory of mind implies various aspects of social interaction of children such as cooperation, lying, following decisions, and feeling empathy for the other. The other learning theory which would be highlighted here is known as social identity theory. This theory proposes that a person's sense of self, of who they are, depend on the group to which they belong. This theory originated from British social psychologist Henry Tyfel and John Turner in 1979. They explained that part of the person's concept of self comes from the group to which the person belongs. Any individual has multiple selves and identities associated with their affiliated groups. Largely, we have an us versus them approach mentality when it comes to our in-groups and the respective out-groups. This becomes important in understanding that there are three processes that create this in-group, out-group mentality. The first is titled social categorization. We need to categorize people in order to understand them and identify them. Second is known as social identification. We tend to adopt the identity of the group that we belong to, and we act in ways that we perceive members of that particular group act. Thirdly, social comparison. After we categorize ourselves within a group and identify ourselves as being members of that particular group, we tend to compare our group, that is the in-group, against the other group, which is the out-group. These processes need to be kept in mind when working with clients in the field. These theories reveal why some students are motivated to work harder and why others in the same class fall out and feel periods of helplessness. This has implications for the concept of self-esteem. The other theory which requires introduction here is self-determination theory. This is an important theory of motivation that addresses issues of intrinsic and extrinsic motivation. Attribution theory, which was proposed by Weiner, was developed as a theoretical framework which became very influential in social psychology. This theory assumes that people try to determine why people do what they do. That is, they interpret causes to an event or behavior. There is a three-stage process which underlies attribution. The first, behavior must be observed or perceived. Second, behavior must be perceived to be intentional. Third, behavior is attributed to either internal or external behavior. Weiner's attribution theory is mainly about achievement, and he opines that the most important factors which impact attributions are ability, effort, task difficulty, and luck. Where one succeeds, one attributes success to internal locus, that is, it was my own skill. When a rival succeeds, one tends to credit external locus of control. Drawing from behavior theory and social learning theory, cognitive theory was propagated by Beck in 1989, who discussed what he called distorted thinking. This was substantiated by Ellis, who spoke of irrational beliefs in individuals and misrepresentations which tend to guide behavior. In order to correct or alter one's behavior, it is necessary to change the misperceptions and the misinterpretations of individuals. When understanding the theories of adult behavior and theories on adult learners, one needs to understand the importance of reflexive learning by doing and also accepting the fact that behavior is a learned phenomena. This aspect needs to be kept in mind when dealing with behavior problems of children or adults in any given agency setting. Having understood some of the learning theories, one would need to appreciate that these theories can be used for intervention purposes in the field setting. The four theories which are being highlighted here are cognitive therapy, respondent or classical conditioning, operant conditioning, and social learning. What is respondent or classical conditioning? Ivan Pavlov, who was a Russian physiologist, was known primarily for his work on classical conditioning. From his own childhood days, Pavlov demonstrated intellectual brilliance along with an unusual energy which he named the instinct for research. He wrote about the fact that response is associated with stimulus and conditioning is the process by which behavior is learnt by human beings. Unconditional learning, for example, the watering of one's eyes, which is involuntary, is very different from conditioned learning or conditioned behavior, which are the responses which are associated with a particular stimulus. Moreover, extinction is the association between a conditioned response and stimulus not being in synchronization with each other. Counter-conditioning, on the other hand, seeks to associate desirable responses with particular stimuli in competition with undesirable responses which may be practiced in a supportive environment and then in real-life situations. Operant conditioning, on the other hand, was proposed as learned automatic responses. B.F. Skinner, the other proponent of this conditioning, focused on consequences of behavior and emphasized that reinforcement and praise are interlinked. He also explained that punishment reduces disturbing behavior, and these aspects are very important for understanding human behavior when working with people in the field. Coming to two other theorists, Hudson and MacDonald, who were the proponents of social learning theory. They explained, in addition to Bandura, that when a person sees someone else performing an action, he or she pays attention to it. The observer then forms an idea or creates a code in the mind about how behavior is to be done, including rehearsals or practice. Observer then identifies circumstances in which the behavior occurs and the subsequent consequences of praise or otherwise. New behavior, according to this theory, rather than simply hearing a new concept and applying it, the learning process is made more efficient if the new behavior is modeled as well. Sheldon Brian Sheldon, who was the proponent of cognitive behavior therapy, stated that large changes in behavior are achieved. They have to be seen to be divided into smaller steps, followed by choosing the right responses, which has implications for intervention in the field. In this context, he said that the schedule of reinforcement of behavior includes one that is continuous, wherein every desired behavior is linked with reinforcement. Second, shaping of behavior, wherein reinforcement is linked with an intensity of desired behavior. And thirdly, fading, which reduces the reinforcement once a particular behavior has been achieved. Having understood what Sheldon had proposed, we come to the next, which is termed as modeling. What does modeling mean and why is it important for us? Modeling is vicarious learning which is reinforced by existing responses and creates possibilities for new responses or unused responses. Secondly, there is a perceived self-efficacy, which implies that what is our own view of how good we are at doing certain things. Thirdly, it has two components. One, a perception of outcomes, and secondly, a perception of the skills we have as individuals. Much learning through modeling is cognitive and therefore needs to be understood where it is being practiced in the field setting. The contribution of both behavioral and cognitive approaches are that they are widely applicable forms of treatment in the clinical setting. Examples of use in individual, group, community and residential settings could be seen with Alcohol Anonymous and youth offenders in certain situations. They are also validated by scientific research in the field. Some proponents have critiqued these theories, saying that they require excellent skills and experience to undergo behavioral progress and to undertake this intervention practice. It is minimally used by psychologists and less applicable for social workers in the setting. When used, social learning theory is more commonly applied, like social skills training is applied more than behavioral methods. Moreover, there are a lot of ethical debates on the techniques, as these are considered to be too directive and structured. Now we come to what is known as crisis intervention and task-centered approach to learning. The origins of crisis intervention approach to learning is from mental health and preventive psychiatry. This uses elements of ego psychology from a psychodynamic perspective and focuses on how to control one's emotional responses to external events as well as how to control it rationally. Task-centered approach, on the other hand, originated from social work. It rejects the psychological and sociological base and claims it as an integrative approach. It also focuses on planned short-term treatment as well as long-term treatment to be more effective if used as an intervention strategy. What are the assumptions in the crisis intervention approach? Naomi Gale, who propagated the crisis intervention approach, stated that every individual, group or organization faces crisis at one point in time or another. Hazardous events tend to create or trigger crisis, which can be anticipated or unanticipated. When these events result in a person or a situation being such that the group or the person loses one's equilibrium, vulnerable states tend to occur. More successful individuals or groups deal with their past problems and face less stress. This provides reason to develop new coping behaviors among individuals, groups, or organizations. Coming to what is widely prevalent is the systems theory. The systems theory describes human behavior in terms of complex systems. It is based on the premise that an effective system is based on individual needs, rewards, expectations, and attributes of the people living in the system. According to this theory, families, couples, organization members are directly involved in resolving a problem, even if it is an individual issue. Systems theory allows one to deal with far more data than the analytical model itself and is extremely relevant in the field of practice. Coming to the psychosocial theory of development, it needs to be stated that this theory is an 8-stage theory of identity and psychosocial development articulated by Erik Erikson. Erikson believed that everyone must pass through 8 stages of development over one's life cycle, namely hope, will, purpose, competence, fidelity, love, care, and wisdom. Each stage is divided into age range beginning from infancy to older adults. From infancy to being an older adult, one goes through these 8 stages of development. Moving on to psychodynamic theory, which was propagated by Freud, it explains that personality in terms of conscious and unconscious forces. Social work theory describes personality as consisting of the id, which is responsible for following one's basic instincts, the ego, which mediates between the id and the ego, and the superego, which attempts to follow rules and behave morally. The next theory which is being mentioned here is transpersonal theory. Transpersonal theory proposes additional stages beyond the adult ego. In healthy individuals, these stages contribute to creativity, wisdom, and altruism. In people lacking healthy ego development, these experiences can lead to psychosis in some cases. Coming to an overview of the learning theories, one would need to state that learning theories are an organized set of principles explaining how individuals acquire, retain, and recall knowledge. By studying and knowing the different learning theories, one can understand and appreciate how learning occurs. The principles of these theories can be used as guidelines to help select instructional tools, techniques, and strategies that promote learning. Although there are many different approaches to learning, there are three basic types of learning which we need to reinforce as we understand our field context: behaviorist, cognitive constructivist, and social constructivist. What does it mean by behaviorism? This theory deals with new behaviors or changes in behaviors which are acquired through associations between stimuli and responses. Cognitive constructive theory, on the other hand, deals with information processing which leads to understanding and retention. Constructivist theory, where knowledge is constructed based on an individual's own experiences. Learning in cognitive learning theory involves the reorganization of experiences either by gaining new insights or changing old ones. This learning becomes a change in knowledge and not just a change in behavior. Examples and applications of cognitive learning theory are classifying information in the agency, linking concepts, being face-to-face with real-world examples, engaging in discussions, problem solving, and utilizing analogy. The second theory which was being discussed is constructivism, which is based on the premise that we all construct our own perspective of the world based on individual experiences and internal knowledge. Learning is then based on how the individual interprets and creates the meaning from one's own experience. This theory is used to focus on preparing people to solve problems. Constructivist outcomes are not always predictable, and learners need to understand that they are constructing their own knowledge in the bargain. There are several examples and applications of constructivism. One is case studies, which you will get exposure to in your respective agencies, research projects which are undertaken by certain organizations, problem-based learning, brainstorming, collaborative learning, and of course, simulations. All theories are important for understanding how adult learners learn and its application in the field. When deciding which strategies to use, it is important to consider the level of knowledge of the learners, the thought processing demands, as well as the desired outcome. In order to summarize what one has been through, it is essential to say that this module would have helped you understand the various learning theories, namely social learning theories and cognitive theories. This is followed by a description of the theories which are relevant in the field for the purpose of intervention, namely respondent or classical conditioning, cognitive therapy, operant conditioning, and social learning. The module on adult learners needs to be read in conjunction with this module for better understanding. Thank you very much.